Hi everyone in the world of cloud computing, and welcome to the 7th episode of the Cloud Computing Training Show with Brad Nelson, an internationally recognised and world's #1 cloud industry expert and thought leader, David Linthicum. This show is sponsored by Nelson Hilliard, cloud computing recruitment specialists, placing great people in cloud, IoT, fintech and AI. In this week's show, David and I will be talking about choosing a non-vendor orientated and vendor orientated cloud training provider. Hi Dave, great to see you back and welcome to another cloud computing training show.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this topic. This is a question I get all the time.
Yeah, it really is a good question, isn't it? And should we look at a non-vendor orientated and a vendor orientated training as a way to create a successful cloud computing strategy?
Yeah, I do. I think people who get every AWS certification known to man are certainly a step in the right direction. They're probably going to get hired, but they typically don't know about the holistic aspect of cloud computing, including architecture, governance, security, all of the things I talk about. And so what I would tell people to do, and I get this question all the time, as to where they should get the right training, whether it's Cloud Guru, Lynda.com, or AWS certification, Microsoft Azure certification, Google certification. That's all well and good, but it has to be a rounded training program. So what I'd recommend is that they get to the general understanding of what the cloud computing notions are. And so deal with architecture. So go to Cloud Guru, go to Lynda, versus the vendor-specific training, and get to really what the essence of what cloud is, what but not necessarily have to take the beginning cloud courses, but work up to the level that you're looking to work up to. So intermediate advanced architecture, intermediate advanced security, all these sorts of things really should be understood as kind of a basis of or a jumping off point in getting into the vendor-specific training. And I think once you get that, and we're talking about weeks, not months, to get through those courses, then get into the AWS specific training or the Azure specific training, or the Google specific training, or whatever, cloud-based system you're going into. It could be IBM and Oracle. And then that'll give you kind of the way to understand the semantics, so you don't have to keep jumping out of the certification training and trying to figure out what a hybrid cloud is, what a multi-cloud is, what security is, what governance is, things like that. And if you take that path, that's typically going to be the strongest way to move into your first gig and working under somebody who knows what they're doing in order to kind of figure out what the cloud means in order to do the migration, building net new applications, and all the things that, hundreds of things that people are going to ask you to do. But I get, the typical frustrated question I get is that, how can I understand more about the cloud so I can get a job that pays a lot of money? And I would tell them that ultimately this is going to be a mixture of you understanding the general concepts, specific concepts, but more or less it's also on-the-job training, really kind of trying things on your own. Believe it or not, I hired a bunch of people, over the years that were able to get the general training on demand online through Cloud Guru, Lynda.com, some other provider, as well as the specifics. But the great thing about cloud is you can go out there and start your own account, start trying things, and start really kind of figuring out what it is to, allocate a server instance on AWS, allocate a storage instance, allocate S3 bucket, put data in the bucket, and all these sorts of things that you're really able to try at a very low price point. So it's going to be three legs of a stool. Number one, general training, specific training, but more importantly, the ability to kind of go off and try things as you learn them. And I think that's what people miss. And so end up hiring lots of people who really can talk a good game and know the semantics backwards and forwards, but can't really do much in the cloud because they haven't lived in the cloud in any duration of time, versus somebody who actually has gone out there and tried things and is willing to admit the fact they haven't done real projects, but they've certainly done training things. They're certainly able to do some of the basic stuff. Not only they understand the semantics, the basics of the vendor-specific stuff, the general stuff, but they got to actually make things happen. So you can get all the cloud training you need in 4 weeks, and if you're willing to spend, get a demo account on Amazon or a demo account on Azure, you can try and play with the stuff, and it's perfectly fine. Just remember that you need to log off of Azure so you don't get the big bill at the end of the month. but it's easy technology to get into. It's very different than, when I got into technology, mainframe computers were, all the rage, and there's no way I can get on a mainframe system, even a timeshare space, because I can't afford it. So someone has to allow me the opportunity to actually get that training. Where in the cloud world, it's all on demand, including the ability to kind of leverage the technology. So take advantage of it. And I just think that this is something that people should, really kind of understand going forward. So it's a great question. Hopefully, I'm sorry about my long-winded answer, but reality is I think people need to hear exactly what they need to do to go forward and, learn about the cloud. And by the way, then you're ready to work for somebody, give Brad a call, find a gig for you.
Thanks for the plug there. That's great. No, it's a great answer as always. You're right. It's just a quagmire of providers out there, of the people jumping on the cloud bandwagon and providing, I'd say not necessarily half-assed solutions when it comes to training, but there's people out there that are certainly a lot more thorough when it comes to the quality of the courses than others, so to speak. And I think it is a bit daunting for people. And if we rewind back to last week, we did a great show on the training, which was the 3 main skills to get you hired immediately, or today at least, and that was great because we focused on some really cool topics there. And if you're watching this now, it's worth finding that link. I'll put the link in the box or somewhere in the video where you can watch that as well, because that was very, very good. And David did point out some really cool things to reference and starting points, because unless you're aware of what you want your outcomes to be, and making it business critical, I think, is a focus, especially from a candidate point of view, when they're looking to position themselves as within an organisation of their dreams, or who they really want to work for, who's their next career move going to be for. It's working out, what does that company not need just now, but what's that company's output's going to be in 6 months, and where do you fit into that? So it's understanding where you're going to be pitching yourself and who you're going to be working for, and then reverse engineering that to making sure you've got the right training to back that up, because then you become a real necessity for the business, and not just something that is you're not just on the list of people out there that there's lots of. You've actually second guessed where the business is going, and you've got the right training for it. And I think that is, if you think from a business critical point of view of the company you're about to step into, you're more likely to be hired. Would you agree, Dave?
Yeah, you got to figure out a target where you want to be and what you want to know to be where you want to be. And so ultimately, this is about mapping your career path out. We talked about that several times in this show before. And the other thing I would add to what you just said, which I think was excellent, you have to figure out where you have a passion for it, what you want to do. And so you're able to explain to somebody that, I want to be a cloud architect, or I want to be a cloud security specialist, and I want to specialize in AWS and Azure. I want to specialize only in AWS, only in Azure. All those sorts of things really need to be, kind of understood and internalized by you as the candidate who's going after these gigs. But the other thing is that you have to understand what the needs of your employer are. So if your employer is moving toward an AWS, Azure, Google multi-cloud, the ability to understand third-party packages that exist outside of those systems, they may need to implement to basically provide an abstraction layer, a single pane of glass to do the management piece. I know I'm getting geeky here, but the reality is you have to figure out what is needed from the fact in terms of what technical gymnastics you need to do to build those systems. And in that case, that's not training you're going to get from any of the providers. That's training you're going to get from, the generalist, lynda.com, reading books, going to classes, going to Learning Tree, which is a company here in the United States, or whatever equivalent in Australia, to basically figure out what your capabilities need to be to basically support these various systems. So ultimately, this is a understanding of what your desires are, what your training objectives are, and then also what your employer needs. I don't think we can be naive in the fact that we're going to go after something or try to do something that makes us happy. I think that's part of the deal. We're trying to go after something that we can market skills out to a particular employer to make them successful. And I think that we're really talking about the first job people out there, the folks that may have been IT and may have been on the outskirts, may have done technical support, are something related to information technology. Now they're looking at it in the cloud, and they understand enough about it to figure out how they can really kind of map their skills into more advanced skills to map them into a position. But you need to understand the objectives, requirements, things like that. And that's pretty much it. And the thing is, the training will be fairly easy to understand. And by the way, this is continuously improvement. So if you do not feel that you're getting the bang for the buck of the training you're getting, move on to other providers. Whether I don't care if you're getting it for Lynda or Cloud Guru, and there's probably a dozen others out there. But make sure that you're in sync with the people who are delivering the content to you, so you can get it easily, and then move into the space fairly easily. So this is about understanding what your needs are, what your employer's needs are, what the resources out there to make it happen. But it's also about understanding you need a mix of things besides just the vendor-related training to move yourself forward to be successful in the marketplace.
Completely. It really is. Knowing the outcomes and knowing the whys and whats you're doing, and making sure you're passionate about it. So very well said there, Dave. I couldn't agree with you more. And thanks again for being part of this week's Cloud Computing Training Show. As always, an absolute pleasure.
Absolutely. Go out there and learn something, guys.
Knowledge is key and knowledge is power, so they say. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this week's Cloud Computing Training Show with myself and David Linthicum. You can get David on Twitter, which is at David Linthicum. I'm also on Twitter, which is at Nelson_Hilliard. Thanks for watching, and remember to like, comment and subscribe to the channel, because we do 3 shows each week, David and I, and also there's the weekly Cloud Computing news. So stay tuned for more interesting topics David and I will be covering. And thanks again for watching.